Today is Wednesday, January the 7th, 2025. This is the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Advisory Committee. And we're meeting today on Zoom and in person at the Aquatic Park. And hi, I'm Jeanette DeCastro, Chair. Before I move into our first agenda item, I'd like us to go around the room, please, and introduce ourselves really briefly. And then, did you want to do that actually? Do you want me to wait on intros?
Totally up to you. Yeah, if we could, that would be helpful.
Okay, so we'll wait. Okay, sounds great. So that takes me to, could you share with me, Jessica, who's on Zoom?
It is. We don't know that any DAC members, we just have staff, and then Camille is joining.
Oh, wonderful.
Screen sharing.
And welcome, thank you for being here, for our folks in the Zoom room. So the next item was to introduce a new member. We have a new member in sub area 4, whose name is Josh Fisher. I don't see Josh in the room today. So I'm not sure if it was hard to find us or if they weren't able to make it this evening. Haven't heard on that. Did you hear anything, Jessica? Okay, great. So hopefully they'll find us and maybe they've taken a wrong turn. So I do have a few words I'd like to share with everyone, and look forward to meeting Josh. So welcome to 2025. There are new possibilities. I've been really reflecting on those as we enter a new year. I wanted to welcome Josh. Josh, welcome where you are.
You can see the video.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. And I want to say a thank you and express some gratitude and appreciation to Missouri Gamichu, who recently resigned from the District Advisory Committee. They were in sub area 1 as a position. And so thank you, Missouri, for the time you spent. I appreciate your perspective, your contributions. I wish you all the best. I know you were always running with all of the things on your plate. So just hoping all the best things for you, and thank you for serving with us. And as I reflect, the work ahead is going to be dense this year. We'll be asked to be, as an advisory board, to be more efficient. I'm not daunted or worried, because around our table here is a lot of imagination, experience, passion, to support and improve the local parks and recreation in our community. And I'm so sorry. I wanted to just invite everybody to pause for a second and just say together, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Thank you. I'm going to be brutally honest though. I can see how the possibility of how strong and vibrant we can be as a district advisory committee. But we need to be collaborative in our work with each other and with staff. We need to, I needed to ask for help. I needed to ask for some help. So, because I knew that we could go from good to better, because our community and NCPRD and the board of directors, they all deserve that from us. So I have asked some folks for that help. And to that end, you might have been wondering, why is there someone here as a guest in our room, right, to work with us? And that's where I'll hand it off to Camille and say thank you for being here, for that help, so we can get to great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Happy Wednesday. My name is Camille Chomer, and I use pronouns like she and her, and I am the founder of a social impact firm called Interplay. I'm also a 4th generation Portlander, and I grew up learning how to swim at this aquatic. The wave pool I have core memories of the wave pool. Fan favorite for sure. So it's really nice to come back to this space. And to Jeanette's point, I am here to be a support. person, a thought partner, as you gear up to engage in really mission critical work when you think about the future of this district. And so I don't want you all to feel like anything is changing, more so that I'm here to support you as you envision and collaborate and begin to think about how you can better serve this district and better serve the people in this district, this place, this beloved place that we want to protect. We want it to be resilient and we want it to have a better future, right? So I'm here to do some deep listening first and foremost. I want to get to know y'all. And also start to create a foundation for how you might think about what you could change based on your experience as DAC members in the past to what the future might look like as you begin to think about the work ahead. Especially when you think about system planning. I've worked with the city of Portland in many jurisdictions across the state of Oregon. I've gone through a comprehensive plan with the city of Portland. It's a lot of work, right? And key decisions will be made. You'll be providing recommendations to the board of directors. And my theory of change is to ensure that it feels like a meaningful process and an equitable process, and that every voice is heard around the table, and that recommendations are taken seriously and are considered, and everyone feels like their participation has meaning. Okay. So I've created a few slides. I'm going to share them on Zoom here just to help structure our conversation today. And I also have a little activity. So I want to first make sure that we have a chance to get to know each other. And so I'm going to put this in the presentation mode so it's easier to see. There we go. Okay. So I talked a little bit about who I am, but again, I'm the founder of Interplay and we have deep experience in this type of work. So we're a social impact consultancy. We shape justice-driven solutions for people, places, and the planet. So we do a lot of community economic development work, a lot of sustainability work. We do public health work as well. And I've worked for a lot of jurisdictions in partnership with a lot of jurisdictions. At the city level, all the way up to the state level, working with Governor Tina Kotek on the Central City Task Force. So as a lead strategist, and talk about facilitation shops. Oh my gosh, you have business leaders, you have policymakers, you have residents that are all demanding a better central city in Portland, and how do we get there? So I come to this space with experience and a lot of confidence and a lot of excitement to partner with you and do this work. And I have a whole team that does this work with me, but I'm really excited that I get to be the one here tonight. So that's a little bit about my firm. In terms of the agenda today and how we're going to structure our time together, I have about 45 minutes to walk you through some exercises and to get to know you. And this is just a starting point, right? I'm going to be with you all for a couple of months if you'll have me to help support the monthly meetings, to help support the project team with creating the agendas and really making sure that there's a through line. There's a feedback loop, if you will, around your experiences on the DAC right from this moment now, all the way through till about March. Depending, there may be some changes to the schedule, which I'm hearing there might be some interest in and some conversation about. But nonetheless, I'll be here along the way to get you ready and excited and equipped with the tools that you need to engage in the type of key decision making you're going to have to do to get through the systems planning process. Okay. Does that sound okay? Okay. So we'll do introductions. I want to re-ground us. It is unfortunate that the new DAC member isn't here, but that's okay because we're being recorded. I do want to ground us. I found that like in my work with committees, especially folks that have been on committees for a long time, there is a moment where either we start to lose insight around why folks are around the table, or because the composition of the committee has changed, we just don't have that context of why other people are dedicating their time and energy to something like this. So I want to re-ground us a little bit and like, why are you here? Why do you choose to be here on a Wednesday night or once a month or spending even more of your time contributing to this work? Because I think it brings the humanity back into people's participation and you get to learn a little something about your colleagues. Okay, so we're going to start with a little bit of regrounding. And then we'll move into just revisiting code of conduct and some of the ways in which this committee functions as a starting point to think about, okay, if you have had good experiences, that's great. If you've had challenging experiences on this committee, if you think about your experiences overall, and you think about the current state of the committee, how might you envision the future state of the committee? What could change? What are the opportunities, to Jeanette's point, that we can coalesce around to get you to a better place, to get you to be more collaborative, to work through any type of conflict? I have no insight if any of these things have happened, but if they have, they usually do on most committees. How do we overcome those and reduce those challenges and barriers in the future? Okay. And then, if you're willing to, I'd like for us to start to co-create some group agreements that we can commit to, starting with this meeting, because that is what is gonna help you all hold me accountable as a facilitator and vice versa. Okay, so group agreements are just, we'll get into it, but they basically are the starting point for how you can, as a committee, especially with new members, begin to gel. I think about all types of work, but especially group work, as many phases. The first 2 phases is where a lot of committees get stuck. It's the storming phase where everybody comes in, we have our agendas and we have our motivations and there's challenges and there's tension. And then you eventually get to the norming phase where you have protocols and group agreements and accountability measures. And yes, we can have healthy conflict. Conflict, it can be very healthy, can be very productive, but we have some guidelines for how we enter into conflict, right? So depending on how you're feeling about your experience or the challenges that you raised tonight, and I do encourage you to be very honest and candid, I want to move you from the storming phase to the norming phase. Okay, that's my theory of change. Okay, so let's do intros. Thank you for indulging in my long preamble. Let's do intros. I'd love to know names. If you use any pronouns, completely optional. You do not have to say them. Your sub area that you're representing and your length of service on the DAC. And the icebreaker that I'd love everyone to answer, and you must answer all of these in 30 seconds or less. That is the game. What motivates you to contribute to the DAC? In other words, why are you here? What brings you back every month? What are your motivations? What caught your eye when thinking about applying for this position? Tell me. Who wants to kick us off? Thank you. I love it.
I'm Annika Blackbar from sub area 2, as you all know. And the reason I'm here, the main reason is to advocate for more parks, to have a lot of parks, all different size parks,
Yeah.
and especially in areas that currently are deficient in parks. And how many seconds are left? I don't know.
No, that was good. That was great. I love it.
And I live near a wonderful park, River Villa Park. That's how I first got put down roots
Okay.
in NCPRD.
And how long have you been on the DAC?
Since it was formed in 2020.
Wow, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Who wants to go next? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm Joel Bergman.
Mhm.
I'm actually I serve on the Clackamas County Advisory Board to the Milwaukee Community Center. So I'm right now representing the community centers.
Mhm.
Currently, there's only the Milwaukee Community Center, but hopefully soon Concord. Length of service, I've been on that board for about 10 years.
Wow.
I think I'm actually the oldest member of the DAC here because I think I was on the DAB prior to this.
Oh, wow.
And then Grover actually came on shortly thereafter.
Okay.
And the reason I am here is because I grew up in the area. I'm raising my family in the area. My kids were introduced to NCPRD and the programming through the Milwaukee Community Center.
Nice.
And I wanted to find a way to help support and continue its great work.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well, Grover, your name was called out. You know that.
Subtle.
Well, and I don't have to use that part of the 30 seconds.
30 seconds, Grover, I've counted.
So I'm here mostly because I actually am a big fan of outdoors, trees and the like, and I love it. And what I also am lifetime committed to is equity. And I worked with community-based groups for 25 years, And it is, how do people get heard? How do they get included? How do they feel engaged? So I'm here with that as the reason or what I want to accomplish, but I'm also here because it needs to be proportional. There has to be equity, and we need to be clear, we are not here to make a decision.
Yeah.
We are representatives of the residents that come from the sub areas we're in. And it's so hard to keep that alive, because how often do I get to talk to them, and do we do that? And that is the other thing I advocate for significantly, is that we need to keep remembering. It isn't what my opinion is or your opinion. It is, have you had a chance to talk to the people around you? And it isn't something gonna happen immediately. We have to work at building that. I'll be over 30 seconds, but I want to get it all
That's
done.
great context. That's why I asked the question. It's really great. So we're gonna actually circle back to that, Grover, around scope of work. And changes that you want to see in terms of how your role is represented, representing community sentiment and insights. Thank you. Okay, you want to go next? Okay.
I'm Allie Bierstein. I am a representative of Area 5.
Okay.
And I've been on the DAC for about 1.5 years now.
Okay.
I am the chair of the Parks and Rec Board in Milwaukee, so I am serving as liaison for that as well. And I'm here actually almost the exact same thing as what Grover just shared, which I'm a teacher and I've been in education for 12 years. Equity is a really big part of my work. And so I'm here because I want people who've been historically marginalized, their voices, and I want their voices to be a part of it. And I'm really big on trying to engage those folks to being a part of the community, a part of the park system. I want them to be able to have access to the information. So I'm really big on like, is the information translated? Are we reaching out to, our apartment complexes and thinking about those folks? And so that's kind of the lens I wear.
Fantastic. Thanks, Howard. Okay.
I'm Sheila Shaw,
Okay.
she, her, sub area 3.
Okay.
I'm filling a slot that was vacated. So
Okay.
I've only been on it since I think April.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And I was motivated to join because I'm in one of the areas that isn't well represented. And there was kind of a plea at the last minute saying they needed someone to help. I'm very pro getting more parks out for people and the idea of a lot of community participation in that. And so that's why I'm here.
Great. Thanks, Jen. All right, this is back.
I'm Daniel, or Daniel Deal, full name. He, him, sub area 4, and I started in July.
Okay.
And kind of just here, well, Maureen just like kind of grabbed me one day, in my neighborhood, because I live pretty close to her by Mill Park. And I really just want my neighborhood and all of our sub areas to be able to walk to parks easily and feel safe.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the case.
Yeah.
'Cause,
Okay. Well,
Sure, well, not really, I'm Paul Savas, Clackamas County Commissioner. I am a liaison from the board to this. I'm the only commissioner who lives in the district. I'm a lifelong resident of the district.
Okay.
I'm here also because I really care about the district. And I know there's been some challenges with inequities and where the parks are, where the parks are not, and political challenges over the years. And to that degree, a great level of uncertainty, and hoping to make progress and make this a robust community like it once was. My memory goes back 20 something years of this committee, the DAB then, DAC today, so.
Okay.
And my kids were Benny Hoopers.
Oh.
So my kids were part of the, play Benny Hoopers. Now they're in their 30s, but
Yeah.
we got a long history with the district.
Love it.
I'm Lisa, I use she, her pronouns. I represent sub area 5, which is the city of Milwaukee, which is the only city within the district. The rest of the district is unincorporated. I'm actually here in part because Milwaukee has at least for the last several years had one of the city council members be one of the liaisons, so Ellie's one and I'm the other one. I've been on just probably coming up on 2 years. And, my involvement with the parks started when I moved to Milwaukee in 2002. One of the first things I did with my neighborhood association was start working on Spring Park, which is a park down by the Willamette, which at the time was really overgrown and nobody thought it was safe to go in there. And it was just where people went out to Elk Rock Island to have keggers. And, so we started I started activating the neighborhood. We did 4 years straight of Solve Earth Day cleanups where we took out whole dumpsters full of ivy, of bedding, of fencing, of all kinds of things in that park.
Awesome. And Josh has joined us online. Josh, can you hear us? Might need to unmute.
Yeah, no, I can hear you just fine. Thank you.
We are doing introductions, so you're right on time. Do you want to introduce yourself using the prompt on the screen?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, you muted yourself on accident. I do it all the time.
Of course I did. Hi, everyone. I'm Josh Fisher. I use they, them pronouns. And my sub area is sub area 4. And I've been on the committee for about 5 minutes now. So, but I was motivated to join the DAC as someone who uses the parks pretty consistently, as someone whose child uses the summer camps every year and loves going to the aquatic center, just getting involved in helping improve those services, not only for our benefit, but for everyone's benefit was really motivating for me. And then also as a disabled person, being able to help provide insight from a disabled person's perspective on park accessibility, program accessibility, all that kind of stuff is just something I'm very passionate about. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Josh. We're glad you could join. Okay, chairs, we've already met, but I would love for you all to answer the icebreaker question for the benefit of the group.
I guess I go first.
The first one.
So Mark Elliott, he, him, and he, him, me. I'm from sub area 2, which is in the Oak Grove area. I've been on the DAC, I think, a year and a half. I lose track of it. I was an architect for 43 years, and so a part of the built environment.
Yeah.
And one of the things we learned very quickly in architecture is that connection to nature is so important to our health and our well-being and our mental health. And so the opportunity to get involved in the park system where I live and to improve the parks and make it accessible to as many people as possible really made sense to me. And I thought, there are some parks out here and there are not in other words. And so that's really my motivation, is to provide that to, there's many people who cannot pay to go somewhere. That's nice, and to drive 2 hours to go get into nature. So having that ability to go from where you live and walk there, even daily, is really important to their health and well-being, and that contributes to our community health.
Absolutely. Jeanette, you want to take us home?
Thank you, sure. Hi, Jeanette DeCastro. I'm currently serving as chair and I'm from sub area 3. My pronouns are she and they. I've been on the DAC for about 2.5 years, I think, but like Mark, I lose track. And my motivation initially was more parks, but I would say that has expanded. I'm also passionate about community safety, and I'm on the Transportation Safety Commission for Clackamas County. But I definitely see that connection between public spaces that are welcoming and accessible, walkable, like Daniel said, and safety. And now learning how popular our aquatic lessons are And the importance of water safety, that's like my new thing, is I don't want to see that get squeezed or diminished. I want to see that expanded, so.
Yeah, absolutely. That
Thank you.
resonates with me. I live in North Portland and our aquatic center, is no more.
Hmm.
And it broke my heart because that's where my kids were gonna learn how to swim. And so now just thinking about the importance of just open public space, safe space, water or land, just really important. And many folks don't have backyards, right? They don't have front yards. And so these green spaces are really important for our community health and so great. Thank you. I also want to acknowledge that staff right here. We're going to keep introductions to DAC because I've had a chance. I'm getting real close with the staff over there in our work together. So I'll keep us moving. Okay. So the purpose of today is really to start to introduce and set some shared expectations for how I am going to support you as a facilitator and provide strategic counsel along the way if it's of interest. I also kind of want to revisit the DAC's purpose, mostly for the benefit of Josh, who's here with us now, which is great, but also to just re-ground us in our code of conduct. Again, I want you to spend some time thinking about your experience on the DAC and what are the opportunities for positive change that can help you all gear up for the work ahead. And then if you'll indulge me, I would like to co-create some shared group agreements that we can start to utilize immediately, starting today and in future meetings, and then you can use them as a reference point for meetings after my departure. Sound good? Okay. So the purpose. Many of you all have articulated the purpose through your motivation, which I think is the most compelling thing to think about when you think about the purpose of a committee like this. But it really is, to Grover's point, to advise the board of directors on acquisition, design, planning, and development of parks and recreation facilities and programs and maintenance and operations of the district. So it is to advise. I want to underscore this. In a lot of committees, I have experience, actually, I just finished providing facilitation and strategic counsel for a new tax increment financing committee where there's $30 million on the line for East Portland. And of course, people want to make decisions, right? They're like, hey, we have an opportunity to change the trajectory of East Portland. Let's make decisions. But really, their job, their scope of work is to advise. And that's a hard line to balance sometimes. And so I want to reground us in that role and make sure that we're holding ourselves and each other. In terms of code of conduct, many of you all have already uplifted some of these values and these principles, which is upholding equity, diversity, and inclusion, making sure that people have a sense of safety and connection and belonging throughout the district, making sure that people are honored and celebrated, and that barriers are reduced, right? Especially for folks that have different mobility, abilities, and for folks that may be entering into green spaces, this spaces, any facilities for the very first time and are trying to just find their way or find programs for their children and their loved ones. And so in order to uphold these principles though, because you all are advising, you all have to treat each other and your colleagues around the table with respect and dignity and courtesy and grace. And while it does say avoid conflict of interest, I agree with that. But in terms of avoiding conflict, I actually think that sometimes conflict can be healthy. So long as we have some protocols and some a framework for you to enter in some of the challenging discussions, because there will be, it's life. That's what happens between humans. So I want us to think about how we can co-create an environment that facilitates safe and equitable meetings, equity of voice, equity of opinion, equity of participation. So that when you come to this space, not saying that you don't already feel this way, but in the future, most often, you feel excited to be here. You feel like your voice will be heard. You feel like you're contributing to a body of strategic counsel, of advice, if you will, that will land with the board of directors and that you feel good about those recommendations. Okay. Any questions about this? This should feel familiar to you. You looked at it when you accepted the role, but I want to make sure this isn't like, feeling off, right? Okay. Great. Okay, So let's talk about group agreements. At Interplay, our best practice is to always have group agreements, and we offer group agreements as a way to help people that are working towards a common goal, have some sort of shared framework for how they're going to interact, how they're gonna collaborate, how they're gonna work through conflict. I'll provide an example. I was just with that tax increment financing committee, and they had a lot of interpersonal issues crop up from the very beginning. So they were in the storming phase, but the storming phase was getting real stormy and folks were feeling uncomfortable and unsafe coming back to the committee meetings. And I said, that can't happen because so much is at stake for improving this particular place, right? And the people in it. So they had no group agreements. And so folks were showing up the way that they were showing up. Nobody was held accountable. And it became a very contentious space. And I said, the way that we can fix this in the near term is to coalesce around group agreements that we can all hold ourselves accountable to, because they usually facilitate clarity and alignment, right? We're clear about how we're interacting with each other. We're clear about what those boundaries are. We're clear about what is inappropriate, right? Inclusivity, folks have the opportunity to participate. We're hearing lots of voices around the table versus, 2 or 3. Trust, it's not something that happens overnight or even over a couple of weeks, but over time, when we are consistent with our group agreements, trust can be built. Conflict resolution, you have a framework for how you enter into that. Accountability, adaptability, and most importantly, growth. So now, as I've exited that committee, I task them with, you've got your co-chairs that have these principles in this framework, go forth and do the good work that I know that you can do. And now I heard that they're like planning field trips and get-togethers, they had like a holiday thing, I was like, wow, that was fast, that's great. But it's because they all felt more committed and more safe with principles and group agreements in place, okay? So if you are willing, I would love for you all to do some thinking at the individual level. You can do silent thinking for just a moment. And I want you to think about 2 things. The first thing is I want you to reflect on your experience on the DAC, right? All of it. When you participated, when you sat back and were a little bit quiet, when you have disagreed with a fellow member, when you've agreed with a fellow member, how did that feel? Your interactions with staff, etc. I want you to think about all of it and reflect on it, okay? And then part 2 is thinking about that experience. Are there things that you would change, right? Is it the way that folks participate? Is it a lack of boundaries that we have? Is it a lack of direction? Do we have trouble sticking to the agenda for no one's fault? It's just the dynamic in the room. What would you change for the benefit of the group so that you can set a strong foundation for the work ahead? And if your answer is, I wouldn't change anything, that works too. I want to know why. I'm very curious right now. So I want you to take a minute and just reflect. And if you have anything to jot down, feel free to do that, because it's going to set us up for our next exercise. Sound good? And Josh, I realize that you probably don't have much to reflect on because you're new here, but it'll be a good learning lesson. If you have anything to offer in terms of things that you've learned, if you've been on any other committees or any group agreements that you think you would like to add, I welcome your insights too.
Sure, thank you.
All right, let's give it a few more seconds. Okay. You can keep on writing your notes. What I'm gonna do now is just share with you the baseline kind of best practice group agreements that my team use with committees as a starting point. These usually always change. I always encourage whoever I work with to actually change these so that they are right-sized for the committee and the dynamic across the committee. So I'll offer these as a starting point, and then we're gonna switch to a Miro board, a virtual board that I've created to help track your thinking, okay? So the first one is that we acknowledge power dynamics and how they influence what is said and what is withheld. So a lot of times we don't really recognize that power dynamics are shaping the way that people show up and how they contribute. And if you don't name those often, things can go awry sometimes, right? Power dynamics need us, they require us to be explicit, right? There's a power dynamic here in that we have staff here that make decisions. And we have advisory committee, volunteer folks that are in an advisory capacity. You don't make decisions. That's inherently a power dynamic. It doesn't mean that it's a bad power dynamic. It's just something that we need to be cognizant of and we need to be explicit about, especially when staff are presenting information, you have questions, and you experience what I call scope creep, where you start to lean into decision-making, even though you're in an advisory capacity. So we just name them. We want to lead with curiosity. My biggest pain point is when people leave a room and they're like, I don't even know what happened. I have so many questions. I'm like, why didn't you ask the questions in the room when we had a moment? My job is to create clarity, for us to be crystal clear about the path ahead. So we always ask folks to lead with curiosity. If you have a question, you have a concern, raise it, okay? Share the mic, which also means if you hear your own voice more than you hear your colleagues, you need to lean back, okay? Literally lean back and just do some deep listening. If you haven't heard your own voice or folks are asking, hey Grover, what do you think? You lean in a little bit and you start to participate, right? Now, we're cognizant that that has to be facilitated by an environment where you feel safe to do so, but that's a best practice that we want to always emphasize. Respect everybody's access need. Folks have different mobility issues. I have 2 young children at home. Sometimes I need to check my phone or my text from my 10-year-old who knows how to text and likes to ask me, Mom, what are you doing right now? I'm working, right? But that just means my access needs are, I need to be a little bit close to my phone. I can't be on airplane mode. It just doesn't work for me. Other access needs are, I can't sit for 2 hours. I need to be walking around. We just need to be respectful of how people need to show up and participate. Speak from your own experience. This is a big one, especially in this country. We tend to say, well, I think on behalf of these folks, we should be doing this. We can't speak from other people's experience. It's already a privilege to be in this room. There's lots of people that aren't here. So we use I statements a lot, right? We're representing our own opinions and experiences. And then intent versus impact. This is probably the biggest one. You're probably familiar with it, but if you aren't, it is not my intent to offend anyone, right? By what I say, a Freudian slip. But the impact is, it did offend someone. It was harmful. It did create a barrier. So I need to own and be held accountable for the impact, regardless of what your intent was. That's a big one. And I think it's really important to practice it, especially when there's a lot of miscommunication or communication breakdowns across groups, especially with folks who are still building relationship and trust with one another. Okay? So these are what we use. Now, our goal or objective is to co-create some agreements that work for y'all, work for this committee, okay? And to do that, I'm going to share this board that I've created. I'm gonna make this bigger. It's gonna be hard to see, but that's okay. I'm gonna walk y'all through it. So essentially, because you did some reflection, I want us to start to be explicit about some of the challenges you've experienced as a committee member. So that's that pink column right here. And what could an agreement be that helps reduce or overcome that challenge? As well as what's a resource or tool, if there is one, that can help you be consistent with operationalizing that agreement. For instance, one challenge in one of the committees that I facilitated is that not enough voices were heard. This was a challenge because the committee was comprised of business leaders and policymakers and politicians who by training love to talk, right? So it's like, how do I get a governor or a senator to be quiet and let other people talk, right? But I said, hey, everybody around this table has insights and ideas about how we're gonna change the central city. I need to hear from everyone. So I'm actually gonna do an informal roll call. So literally I can hear from everyone on a particular topic. And folks respected that because there's some boundaries there. The agreement was that, for lack of better words, they agreed to lean in, lean back and be cognizant of how much they were hearing their own voice. The tool that we used was a roll call sheet, but also making sure that, for instance, with a name tag, I could count them at how many times somebody had raised this, and if they had met a threshold, you've gotten your insights out to the group. Time to pass the mic, okay? So very easy tool, super informal, okay? So that's an example. What I'd love for you all to think about, reflecting on your experience, what are the challenges, okay? What is an agreement that we can co-create together? That can set the stage for a set of agreements, group agreements, if you will. And is there a resource or tool? We may not be able to answer this concretely, but hopefully I can do some brainstorming in real time that can help you as a group, help the chairs be consistent with upholding that agreement. And you all as well, because everybody's accountable to the group agreements, not just the chairs. Does it make sense? Does this exercise make sense? Okay. Who wants to start? What challenge have you experienced? Yeah, Joel.
I'll just get mine out of the way, I suppose.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which one is first or second with, because I see it's maybe part of an agreement, but regardless, adherence to the agenda,
Okay.
or a lack of focus
Mhm.
seems to be an ongoing issue, at least in my opinion,
Okay,
with this group.
okay.
And I don't know if it ties into that, but I think there's it's redundancy, and I think also, I mean, I'm not trying to take over all of this, but I think,
No, yeah.
like, for example, one of the tools obviously would be the chair
Mhm,
to harness in that redundancy.
mhm.
I think that's how this is working anyway. I don't know, maybe I'm skipping the agreement part.
No.
I mean, share the mic.
I
I
think,
see.
I think the agreement could be, it's around respecting people's time. So
There-
loss of time, I think, is the biggest conundrum of like the human experience. It's
Mhm.
like when you feel like you've lost time, you're like, oh my God, I will never get that back. And we have so much work to do, and we didn't even get to the rest of the agenda. Oh my gosh, how do we get here, right? So it's respecting people's time, because y'all are here on an evening, volunteering your time. We want to be strategic with that time. And so one of the things that we can do, I think this is one, Joel, where it's not just the chairs, it is the chair's responsibility, but I would say that, and I know you get these packets, everyone needs to be paying attention. Even me as a facilitator, you need to hold me accountable for the time I have right now, right? We need to be cognizant of when agenda items are starting. And if you feel us slipping, call it to the attention. Hey, it feels like we're supposed to be on action items at 6:20. We're going over time. Can we gain consensus around whether we need more time on this particular agenda item, or we can move to the next to get through the rest, right? That's an accountability measure of everyone, but I would be expecting the chairs to be clocking this pretty closely. But I think it's a great thing to lift up, Joel.
What if,
Could I ask, or, I'm sorry,
Yeah, go ahead.
well, just to clarify, I don't know if it's part of this or maybe it's even a separate one, but I think it's a focus, or there's sometimes a lack of focus,
Okay.
and it creates wormholes that corrupt
Mhm,
the I don't know, the cadence,
mhm.
I mean, just the whole rhythm of the meeting, and I end up getting, myself at least, I get lost after whatever, I forget about what we were even originally starting to talk about.
Yeah.
And it kind of, I mean, it throws me out of my rhythm.
Mhm.
I don't know if I'm the only person or not, but again, maybe that's tied into just agenda, but that also seems to be an issue.
Yeah, I call that, you know, when we have trouble landing the plane, we're just flying all over, right? We gotta land the plane, but also one tool that I found really helpful, and I know you wanna jump in here. One tool that I found really helpful is after each agenda topic, we do a quick recap. Here's what we said. Here are any action items. Here are things for discovery. Discovery meaning we've asked staff to go do some digging, do some research so that we can get our questions answered. That quick protocol brings folks back and they're like, oh yes, okay. Especially if any decisions have been made specific to the committee, right? But just doing that quick recap could help. So that's something that we might want to practice starting at the next meeting. Recap after every agenda item, and I will help facilitate that and see how the flow works. Does that sound okay?
Terrific.
Did you have a question or a comment?
Well, I was just thinking under the resources thing, that there's those visual timers that
Oh, yeah.
are read that they, you know, as you have less and less
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
And then
Uh-huh.
there's also the idea of having a little timer that depending on how long it is, that'll beep when there's 5 minutes. left,
Yeah.
something like that, so that Jeanette, I mean, or having a timekeeper, something so that, you know, Jeanette's facilitating the meeting and stuff, and for her to have to keep track of the
It's a
time,
lot.
too, it's a lot,
It's
yeah.
a lot, yeah, those visual timers are great. I was gonna bring one, I told Erin I was gonna bring one, but I didn't wanna scare y'all. Like, oh my god, I only have, you know, like, so I did the 30 seconds or less as a little primer. I can bring the timer next time. Jeanette.
I can, it sounds like, I mean, you mentioned time, we're at 6:17.
Yeah.
I'd like to propose moving 5 minutes from item 5
Okay,
into this exercise.
Okay.
Soon, I think could use the time.
great, yes, that's a great.
Any
We're-
objections?
We're modeling, I love it. Yeah, great, okay. All right, what else? Let's add to this list. So we've got adhering to the agenda, working through a lack of focus. The agreement is to respect time on the agenda and of each other. And a couple of resources could be that the chairs are highlighting the timestamps, just like Jeanette did literally just now. We do topic recaps after each topic, and that we could incorporate visual timers. It's a great first start. What else?
I'll mention what I think that there we have some voices that carry more weight than others.
Okay.
Only because perhaps of their position, like Paul, or because they've been on the group for a long time and you have a lot of history. Right? So some of those voices do carry more weight than others, right?
Okay.
And I think sometimes that can lead to some imbalance. in the conversation. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. So that's actually a really interesting challenge. So I want us to have a conversation. One thing that I forgot to mention is I'm not a fluorescent lighting type of consultant. I'm not gonna just tell you what to do, right? We have to enter into co-creation together and brainstorm together. So, and I don't have experience, I don't have insight into how this has played out. And so I'd love to hear from the rest of the committee, the members here. How might we reconcile this? This weighting that feels imbalanced.
Well, I don't know if this ties into that or not, but one of the things, and so this might be totally off topic. But one of the things that I was thinking about was having think time. So the idea that when we get our packet and stuff in advance, you know, so if we know something on the packet is gonna be talked about or discussed or whatever, for us to know that in advance so that we can think about it. But if something comes up at the meeting that we need to give an opinion about, to take a minute for each of us to think independently so that so the people that are new are having thoughts before hearing what other people are gonna say.
Interesting.
I mean,
Yeah, I think that's directly related, by the way. I
okay.
think that's an interesting agreement with resources. Thoughts from others? We're just gonna track that, yeah, Jeanette.
My bladder greatly welcomes short breaks. Thank you. Sorry for the TMI.
Yeah. That's great.
That's respect for everyone's access.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so any other thoughts? I'm just trying, I think what I'm hearing you say is the agreement could be creating space for individual thinking, which is what I did with y'all, right? Reflection. And that the behavior change or the resource tool is that you have the information you need to do that reflection before the meeting. That's also a commitment that folks are gonna sit outside of the meeting itself, your hours, your volunteer hours to do that work. Does that feel accessible for everyone? Looking at our teacher, who has a lot.
Exactly what I was thinking. I'm like, oh my God, okay, but yes, I can look through it. I mean,
Or you can dedicate time at the top of the meeting or within each topic to say, just like we did today, I want you to spend 2 minutes doing some reflection, gathering your thoughts before we dive into
And the
discussion.
packet is huge. It could be that there's certain parts of it that need to be reviewed in advance and other
Okay.
things that don't have to.
Okay.
Right, I mean,
That's probably
Yes,
the-
yeah, yeah. And which parts of the packets correspond to the discussion.
Mhm. Was someone gonna say something?
Well, and I was just gonna, yeah, sort of second what Sheila said, like today's packet has the director's report. That's really not something we have to study and think about, right? But like when we get a packet that has slides about the research from the systems plan effort and the surveys and stuff, that is good stuff for us to have each spend some time on before we. Yeah, so the whole packet doesn't, I don't think, require us to closely read it, but there are key things in some of the packets.
That's helpful, thank you. Mark, I want to circle back and see if the agreement / resource tool resonates with you.
Yes, yeah, I think part of that.
Yeah, and again, y'all, none of this is set in stone. We're in ideation mode. These agreements can be, they should be tweaked and refined, and we'll get there in our next meeting perhaps, but I just want us to have a starting point to reflect on. Grover.
I find it difficult to read what's on the screen. and
okay.
And it's not helpful for me at all to have it up there,
Yeah.
so I'd like to
Okay.
stop pretending that we can see that. I need to do something different.
I love it. Okay.
My
So,
glasses are- I can actually see it,
All right.
whereas I couldn't glasses.
okay, so I think Grover, that's really great in terms of access needs. What we can do, and in the future, starting with the next meeting, I can make sure that there's printouts, of whatever I'm sharing. But I think,
Well, this is being generative, so.
yeah,
It
yeah,
won't be what
true.
you're sharing.
Yeah, true.
But I
Um,
think maybe it's bigger.
Yeah, absolutely. I can try to make it.
we could just have to grab the.
It's right here next to me, bro.
Yeah.
Then I'd be parallax angle. Can you change the font size? Can you
I think
change the
so.
size of that actual screen?
Oh, that's
Okay.
better.
I can zoom in.
Yeah, like that.
And make
I'll
the
just-
whole square bigger, so
Yeah.
slide that over some more and make that side thing smaller.
Yeah.
You
So,
learn about playing with your Zoom screen.
okay. Okay, so I want to recap for y'all where we're at. So if I zoom into challenges here, we've got adhering to the agenda, lack of focus as a challenge. The agreement is to respect time on the agenda, so we're paying attention to those timestamps and making recommendations about when we want to change things, just like Jeanette did. The resource tool is that the chairs are highlighting those timestamps. We have topic recaps before moving on to the next, and that we potentially could introduce a visual timer. Okay. The next challenge is that we have equity of perspective and voice, right? So that an agreement could be that we create space for individual reflection so that folks are not taking up too much time in the meeting, that they're coming with their pre-calculated thoughts, if you will. And the requirement, though, the resource is that it requires pre-work, and we just need to be cognizant and have grace for folks that have less capacity than others to do that, right? So it may be that in the meeting, we're dedicating 1 to 2 minutes for individual reflection for a discussion item. if folks weren't able to do the pre-work. Okay. Respecting access needs, I think I'll combine these two now that I'm looking at them. Short breaks during meetings, so can we take a 3 to 5 minute bio break? Can we incorporate that into meeting agendas for folks? I think that's an easy fix. And then another access need is that either we're printing materials or we're ensuring that there's legibility of anything that we're sharing on screens. And then a quick fix is font size and readability checks. And there's some design standards that I can share with you all to make sure that we meet those standards. So I think I'll combine those. What's missing?
Yeah, I do see that there's a chat.
Oh, is that from Michelle? Thank you. I've got so much on my screen right now. Yes. I'm doing a lot. I can't see it. Oh, that was from earlier from Josh.
Okay.
Josh, you've been quiet. Is there anything you want to add?
I mean, actually, the access needs conversation was one I was going to bring up because that's one I've encountered
Yeah.
with some other advisory boards I've been on and stuff, but that discussion sort of already got handled. But I appreciate that it was something other people were thinking of too. So.
Yeah, okay, great. If anything else comes up, let us know.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Are there other challenges that you want to name? Michelle. Grover? Oh, whoa. It's a duel.
Since I know that when I came onto the DAC, there had been some history previous, like there was some stuff that was happening before I came on, and since I've been on, I'm gonna feel a little vulnerable sharing this, but it has felt like there has been an us versus them mentality, specifically with unincorporated areas versus Milwaukee, since we are incorporated, we are it's incorporated city. And so there's just been times where things are, well, Milwaukee is fine, let's focus on these others, which I'm not disagreeing with that. But it does make it challenging sometimes to be here, because and there's been a lot of like talk about like, well, we don't know if Milwaukee's staying, so blah, blah, blah. And the thing is, we're not even talking about leaving, and we're still part of the district. And so that has been pretty challenging, and just always feeling like I have to stick up for Milwaukee or always speaking on behalf of Milwaukee. So that's been pretty challenging, and trying to move forward.
Okay. So let's talk about that. Us versus them mentality. This happens a lot. We call this in-group dynamics, in-group versus out-group dynamics. They happen pretty consistently across any type of group setting. And I think the root cause, we use root cause analysis a lot in our plans. Usually the root cause is a lack of context and understanding, tension around resources, and a general lack of a shared vision for the types of positive impact you're trying to create regardless of the place, right? If the theory of change is that based on your motivations for being here, you want more parks, more green spaces, you want safer conditions for people, for the community. Yes, there are tensions around funding, but if we're really gonna make the positive change that we want, we need to stick to that shared vision. Right, and so I'm curious, because I don't have a lot of insight around this dynamic. How might we overcome this? What are some group agreements that we can set in place to make sure that an us versus them mentality is reduced? Yeah.
We've had like some opportunities to do kind of tours together, different facilities, and maybe just rotating through the different sub areas, just to show that it is us. That maybe would help.
Yeah. I love a good field trip. It's great. What about the dynamic? I feel like that is a resource, a tool. What about the dynamic taking place in the now? in the meetings? How do we overcome and address that particular challenge? And I don't know that we will answer it tonight, but it is some thinking that I want you all to do so that we're creating a sense of equity and most importantly, belonging. Jeanette?
I think I would come back to Joel's observation that it's been hard to stick to our agenda. Because there feels to be an interconnectedness of different concerns that we have.
Yeah.
But what I think could be helpful for sticking to the shared vision is, knowing our role. And we've been sort of told that by staff in the past in a way that I think has felt very punitive. Like, you have a roles and responsibilities problem. You could be right, but my hackles are up. But knowing what it is we're here to do, and that we're here to be the best advisory committee we can be, so that the board of directors comes to us all the time because we're so awesome, right? But that means not talking about things that are outside of our lane.
I think I would, thank you, Jeanette. I think I would translate that to revisiting the purpose and goals, which is why I did that with y'all tonight. It's a good regrounding tool. When committees get astray and there becomes insider, outsider, us versus them mentality, it's because people have strayed from purpose and they've strayed from vision. And so as a facilitator, I bring folks back. Come on back, join me, get back on that bus. So that we can figure out how to reincorporate and not inadvertently perpetuate that type of inequity and not harm, right? Because intent versus impact may not be the intent, the impact is still felt.
Okay, and I think,
We're gonna do, yes. Go next.
I don't have any solutions or anything to offer, but since I've been on the DAC, I felt that I had to tiptoe around the difference between the city and the unincorporated part, and that we weren't really going to talk about it. Sometimes it would rise to the surface and then it would get pushed back down. And it's been very uncomfortable. And there is a situation, I don't even understand the current situation between Milwaukee, possibly leaving and possibly staying. And what I don't go to the city council meetings to see what the views are, or the Parks Foundation meetings. I went a few times, but to see what the climate is right now between the people in Milwaukee and how they relate to NCPRD. So it's just a really uncomfortable thing that seems like it's been taboo to look at.
Thank you for that. That's important to name. I would say that's a lack of shared understanding or a lack of context happens a lot. One of the things that you can do is lead with curiosity. That's one of the group agreements that I had shared a moment ago. But also to make the implicit explicit. In our culture, we like to make things a lot of things implicit. And then folks leave like, wait, what? Am I missing something? How did we arrive here? Why are people upset? What did I miss? Did I not read a group text or a memo? We just need to name, like, I'm sensing one of the, I will say, it requires a lot of vulnerability and a safe space. To some degree, I have some conflict around being able to actually create safe spaces for everyone. I think it's very challenging. However, there is a lot of power in naming a dynamic as it's happening. I'm sensing there's a lot of tension, not really sure why. Can we talk about, is anyone else experiencing this? Can we talk about like what I'm missing around this dynamic? Just making the implicit explicit. Knowing that, yes, it may ruffle some feathers, but you're gonna come out on the other side with at least hearing some perspectives about what is happening. It is challenging, but if you engage in your group agreements and you have a framework, it can be done. I promise. Okay. Lisa, and then I want to do a time check. We're at 6:34. I know there are other agenda items. I want to make sure I'm respectful of y'all's time.
I just wanted to sort of pick up on the issue of Milwaukee, the us versus them, and say that, going back again to our, original role, we are advisory, those decisions are not gonna be made in this room. And we in this room do not have control over them. So I've appreciated, actually, the vice chair has made the point in a few settings that Milwaukee's still paying members, Milwaukee residents are still paying the freight. They're still part of this district, they're paying for the systems plan work and everything else that's going on. And, so I think that's just the way we should look at it. You know?
Okay. How does that feel for you, Ryan? You may not feel,
I feel better just
Resolved.
saying that out loud.
right, exactly. Yeah, and we'll continue to work on it. Do you want to say something?
Well, I was just gonna piggyback on what Ally was saying, and you just let you know, as a new person in, that sometimes when people are talking about stuff, that I haven't, it's like people were really talking about something else, but they weren't saying what that was, and I couldn't figure out what that was that was going on, so.
Say what you mean.
Well, but I mean, anyway,
Yeah.
and maybe those are the whatever that's called, when you get on topic.
Yeah.
I was feeling like that, but there was oftentimes when people would be talking about stuff, and I knew they weren't, that there was something else they were really talking about, but that's not what they were saying.
Yeah. One of the tools that I've used with committees is that you have an anonymous feedback loop or FAQ. You drop feedback, you drop questions, you drop concerns in an anonymous survey. You have to determine who is going to collect that information, whether it's your chairs or other, like whomever. And then you have a space, you create some time in the agenda to look at those questions or those comments. So then sometimes that allows things to be explicit. You may not resolve the question or the feedback, but at least it is a shared understanding that this is being raised by DAC members. Grover?
I think we're out of time and I have more than there is in the time left to speak, but I just want to summarize that the actual history that leads from 1990 till now is not included in this conversation at all. And the imbalances, the whole reason that in 2018, there was a petition to specifically reform this group. It took 2 years to get that done, etc. And it was to focus on equity and distribution, not having it be so one-sided. And that this is a fact.
Yeah.
There are 18 parks for 21,000 people who live in Milwaukee. There are 16 parks for the other 83,000 people, but that doesn't get spoken of. And I'm a big fan of Milwaukee, but I do not want to have it continue as it has for so many years, being out of balance of how the money, the cost, the tax dollars, etc., being distributed and having parts of the park. This gentleman has no parks. He has one park where he lives. He has the same number of people. These two people have the same number. No, you're going 2 people, but anyway, you and Josh have the same number of people as Milwaukee, and together they have 1 park compared to 18 parks.
Including the Milwaukee pays for their own parks.
It's irrelevant. We pay for your maintenance, we pay for all kinds of things. You used to have Jim Bernard as the head of the chair. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. It's been going on and on. And to talk about all that unfairness for years, this group does not want to hear that. So I don't want to have that conversation, but just to pretend it didn't happen. And okay, we'll be nice and do that. No, you've got to honor history. And I'm not putting that on you.
No,
I'm
no,
just
I
saying
hear you.
that's been going on. I've been in this group since 2019.
Yeah, I hear you. I think, so one of the things that we know to be true, is that we can have perspectives and ideology about things and have to suspend them for the sake of the good of what you're coalescing around, which is the challenge that you're in, Grover. Like,
Absolutely.
you have a particular ideology. Folks may disagree with it. Your charge is still to provide good, sound advice to the board of directors. So you will sit in that tension, not just you, many folks around the table, you must sit in those tensions, right? And be able to still provide that sound strategic counsel when it counts.
We do.
Yeah, it's the challenge. And so naming that often, right? But also being very cognizant of the impact it may have for folks who are representing a district and hearing the fact that your ideology doesn't speak to their participation. I mean, when you think about politics, that's what it is, right? We have difference of ideologies, things that you say impact me in a particular way, and we still gotta show up at the end of the day and do business. So can we create fertile ground for us to live in that tension? That's my job every day. I live in tension. I live in working across difference in ideology. And my superpower is to galvanize people around a shared vision with those tensions in place. So I just want us to reflect on what that means for your work ahead. That's all. Historical context is so important. People enter into decision-making with no historical context. It is wild to me. It flabbergasts me. So it's important that we name it. And it's important that folks are here around the table advocating for the places that they live and they work and they enjoy. Okay. All right, I know. All right. I want to call attention to time, 6:41. We have, first of all, great job, y'all. We have a set of group agreements. These are not set in stone. There are probably many typos. I'm going to clean them up and reflect them back to you. I have a question, a process question. Would you like me to reflect them back to you via support from staff before the next meeting? Or do you want to revisit them at the next meeting? Before.
We do both?
Yeah,
Let's do both.
so if I share them with you before the next meeting, I would love for you to review them carefully. And if you feel like anything is missing, you come prepared to the next meeting, making a recommendation. What needs to be added, what needs to be massaged, what did I get wrong? Can we commit to that? That's your pre-work. It's, if you have the capacity, please do it. And I will get this, I will clean this up and send it to you as a PDF. Sound good? Okay, I'm gonna take 2 more minutes because I want to go back to the slide deck and just preview for you all what the next steps are for my work specifically. So. You don't wanna do that? Zoom's getting tricky. One second now, who's on tech issues? All right, let me make this bigger. So we've got through our group agreement exercise. What I want to talk about are next steps and action items and what you can expect from me. I have a scope of work, which is my theory of change is to get y'all to a place where we can begin to name what's implicit that needs to be explicit, work through it, and ground ourselves in our purpose, our goals, and the plan, the path ahead. Okay, that's my theory of change for my body of work. My body of work is to provide facilitation support for tonight's meeting, the February meeting, and the March meeting, pending any schedule changes. And to provide strategic counsel to staff as they're beginning to process some of the decisions that you all are making about this committee. I'm also going to do some discovery work. So I'm glad that you brought this up, Grover, because part of my charge is to get that historical context so I can make a more comprehensive recommendation about what might need to change to benefit this group. So there will be group interviews and individual interviews with all of you if you have the capacity. Meaning I'm going to be sitting with the chairs to hear their experience. I'm going to be asking you all to set aside 15 to 30 minutes to sit with me so I can ask you a few questions about your experience, about the history, so that I have perspectives from everyone. Because what I do know is that in these types of settings where there is tension, sometimes folks do not feel comfortable naming things that need to be named. I'm sure, based on power dynamics, there's a lot that was withheld in this meeting tonight. So my goal is through the discovery process is to create an open space, just me and you, to have another conversation about your experience. Everything that I hear, I want to repeat this and emphasize this, everything that I hear will remain anonymous. Okay? So I will complete in-depth interviews, group interviews, and a focus group with staff. And then I will provide key findings and recommendations based on what I've heard. Again, everything will be anonymous. So I will say, these themes came up across interviews. These themes came up across everyone that I spoke to. Based on these themes, I recommend X, Y, and Z. Okay? And then, based on those recommendations, I would go, I think I would want to co-create with you all a best practice framework, a set of tools that you can tap into, especially the chairs, that will help you stay accountable to the changes you want to make and the group agreements that you've set in place. Okay? And then you're off to the races on your own, and you're gonna do great. I trust, okay? So in terms of action items, here's what I need you to prepare for. If you have feedback and or recommendations about tonight's meeting, I want you to share it with staff, or you can share it with me. Staff can share my email. I love feedback. It helps me improve my services. If none of those options work for you, I'm happy to troubleshoot another option, like an anonymous survey that you can fill out, okay? I also want you to check your email over the next week or so to respond to a request for the interview that I want to have with you. Okay, so check your schedules, figure out if you can spend 15 or 30 minutes with me. I promise I'll make it fun to do your interview. And then for any materials that I create or are created per our best practice or our group agreement, that you're committing to doing a little bit of pre-work, reflecting on them, reviewing them ahead of our February meeting. We'll give you ample opportunity and time to do that work. Those action items, are they clear?
You're gonna include it in the communication you send, because you're gonna send us that, so you
Yeah.
can recap that there.
Yep, absolutely.
And what will where the email that it comes from, will that be your name?
It'll be from staff.
It'll be, okay.
Yeah, but
I just wanted to make
what
sure.
will make it easy is I'm including a link to my calendar where you can just pop in and select a time that works best for you, and then it's all scheduled. What I will do also is send you the interview questions that I'm planning to ask you in advance, so you have a chance to think on it. Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's so nice to meet you all. I look forward to it.
Thank you.
That takes us to action items. Approval of the DAC meeting summary from November the 13th, 2024. Thank you. And I think that's on page 3 of our 3 and 4 of our PDF, excuse me, 3, 4, and 5. Are there any comments or corrections?
I move we approve the minutes as written.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, I lost my words, sorry. Any objections, questions? All right, so moved. All right, meeting minutes are accepted. Thank you. Thank you, Jessica. Jessica's our secretary. Makes the magic happen. An informational item, I'd like to invite Erin Riom to talk about the new dinner and design social. Do you want to sit here?
No, it's okay. It's a new year. We've got lots of new exciting things up ahead, and one of those new exciting things that we wanted to spotlight, and I think Jessica's gonna pull this up, is an event that we have coming up on February 8th. We have our first ever design and dinner social event that we are going to be hosting. So this is something new, and we're doing this in place of hosting a series of different open houses for the many different projects that we have running right now, like the system plan, the Park at Jennings Lodge campus, the Concord project. We have a lot in the works. So rather than setting up a series of different open houses, we're going to consolidate those into one efficient open house that also functions as an NCPRD event and offers something new to the community. So we're hoping that this will not only boost attendance, because oftentimes those project-related open houses are pretty sparsely attended, but it'll also reduce costs for the district and add something new to our calendar as well. So what you can expect at the event, we're going to have a system plan booth that's going to feature the vision, the goals, some of the draft plan content that our consultant team has been working on, and an opportunity for folks to interact with that and to comment on it. We'll have a station that features the latest designs for the Park at Jennings Lodge campus, as well as a monitor setup so that we can show off the cool 3D video fly through of the latest design schemes for that. So that should be really neat. We'll have another station that will spotlight the Concord project as well, and what folks can expect when that building opens in fall of 2025. And we'll have an opportunity for participants to weigh in on programming, recreation programming, and where they prefer to see that programming at our many different facilities across the district. So lots of opportunities to learn about what's happening and also to provide input. But also, because we heard through the system plan that folks would like to see more arts and culture events, we've added some additional activities to this event as well. So we are bringing in Skating as Connection, a nonprofit that does skateboard design and restoration work. So they're going to have some skateboard design activities going on. And we also have Liz Miller Customs that's going to be presenting on the history of sneaker design and helping people to create their own sneaker design stencils. So that should be pretty cool. We will have food provided. It will have vegetarian and gluten-free options. And then our NCPRD very own Jessie LeMaine from the Milwaukee Community Center is going to be our DJ for the evening.
Cool.
Providing us with some ambiance and some energy as we work through all of those different activities. So specific details, it's February 8th from 3:30 to 6:30. That's a Saturday at the Milwaukee Community Center. And you have a PDF flyer of this in your packet. We would love if you would share this widely, encourage your networks to participate and to come to the event, because we think it's going to be pretty fun. So.
Thank you. And that takes us to DAC member reports. And these are for Camille's benefit and Josh too, sub-area specific reports from our members and budget committee liaison report. We can also share upcoming event days, and each is about 1 to 2 minutes. We're pretty tight on time. So if we want to be a little faster or omit, that's okay too. So I'll go around the room, start with Mark. Do you have any reports? Okay. How about you, Allie?
Scott Park has been opened and is available for everyone to enjoy. They just got a new playground, updated stadium, and so it's really great to bring them, especially after bringing your kids or just yourselves after going to the Letting Library. It's right outside those doors. And then we have our other parks, Bowman Bray and Balfour Park. They will be opening in March and February at time.
Bowman Bray may open by the end of this month. And
We're just waiting for a couple of-
Balfour in February.
Yeah, we're just waiting for a couple more play structures to come in, but it's really exciting. It's gonna complete it.
Stellar, thank you. Shiva?
Well, yes, I attended the budget committee meeting. I'm the liaison, and thanks to Dominic for explaining to me I was not to bring information back from the budget committee, but I was to take information to the budget committee. Yes. So I quickly used the minutes in my brain to come up with the things that we had talked about at the end of our last meeting, and just a quick summary that we wanted them to complete our recommendation was to go ahead and complete the system plan. That was a general consistency, wanting to develop the properties in underserved areas. It was okay to hold off on the trails if funding wasn't available. that we questioned about, if we were in the business of older adult services, but that we knew that that was an important need, so requested maybe they looked at other funding sources for that. And services most critical to the district, adaptive and inclusive sports and swims.
Thank you. Look, Daniel?
I don't have anything super new, but I'm just excited for Josh to join and another representative from my sub area. And River was encouraging me to get a listening session going, so I think that's something we could talk about. For getting the ball rolling on.
Nothing new, but speaking of the listening session, I actually really want to invite y'all is to look for like existing or cause one. I mean, sub area 4, excuse me, 3, we made one some while back and we found one in Jennings Lodge. And it is how you create it, so there'll be people there. Not a big, long, hard meeting, but you get to hear what their concerns are, their interests are, because those are the people who are going to eventually vote that we either are going to be an independent district and be able to separate ourselves from. And I really want to give credit to the Board of Commissioners. They have 40 some odd advisory boards, et cetera, that report to them. And so I could be wrong on the number, but it's a monumental task. And so our job is to do more of that, as I see it. And we have to build up the muscle and the skill and the focus and the authority to be able to do that, and we're not there yet.
Okay, that was more general comment. Anita, for your sub area?
Nothing to report. The next 3 Saturdays, there are work party opportunities if anybody wants to come out and help. We have always second Saturday of every month, Mentor Springs, third Saturday of every month, Up Rock Island. And this month, also the 4th Saturday is an event at Up Rock Island. It's sponsored by the North Clackamas Watersheds Council, which collected Christmas, along with NCPRD, which collected Christmas trees here on the, or nearby at North Clackamas Park, and will be placing the Christmas trees into the Willamette River as fish habitat and doing other work party, cleanup stuff in the parks that day.
Just a quick, hopefully, timely reminder as we get out of the spring weather, that the Milwaukee Community Center does have an emergency firewood program. And you can apply for energy assistance funding at the Milwaukee Community Center. So if you're all able to share that with your circles and communities, that would be great.
Thank you, Joel. Okay, that's me. There's been a lot of chit chat in the community about a property that was for sale adjacent to the Justice Park or the Justice property on 122nd. I don't have firm information how that landed. So hoping to learn more in the next couple of weeks. I think there was a strong community desire for that to be a park and not necessarily be a development. So really open to hearing from folks out in community, what they were hoping for, and if there's opportunities for collaboration. I want to be vague because I don't know as much as I ought to. Learning as we go. Go ahead, Sheila.
So is the Justice property not currently owned by North Clackamas Parks?
I'm sorry. So there's a property that's a Justice Park property, and there's a property to the north that was for sale and on the market and purchased by a developer.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting times. That we're at 6:59. I'm going to propose that we add some time at the end to go through our district monthly report and public comment. How much time would you need, Director?
5 to 8 minutes.
5 to 8 minutes?
I'll be brief.
Are you like the micro machine person? I'm joking. Thank you.
It could be.
Okay.
Okay, I'll be brief. And just to begin, to your point about the parcel adjacent to the NCPRD owned Justice property, I'll provide some information and an update on that, and our interest.
at the next meeting, if that's okay.
That's totally fine.
Okay,
These things
thank you.
move too fast for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, well, Happy New Year, everyone. I am going to make this really brief, so bear with me for some fast talking, but I do want to say 2025 is going to be a really exciting year at NCPRD. Looking ahead to the calendar year of 2025, we anticipate demand for our recreation programs and events to return to pre-pandemic levels. And as such, we are relaunching NCPRD's Discovery Guide this spring that will include all programs and events for summer 2025. We haven't had a full Discovery Guide since winter of 2020 because of the pandemic. So that's really exciting. Several transformative projects that have been several years in the making that all of you have worked on will be completed this calendar year, including our system plan, the 20-year roadmap for district investments. New amenities at the Concord property will be reopening to the community this fall, including a new community park, our first fully accessible playground and splash pad and community center. And our new website will be launched with a fresher look and more functionality. Tonight, I have a few specific updates for you and some of the other happenings at NCPRD, so I'll spin through those quickly. Construction at the Concord property is going well. The playground construction has started and the main parking lot actually has its first lift of asphalt. The new roof on the community center has been completed just in time for the heavy rains, and staff are continuing refinement of the scope for the interior improvements. And we're really working hard to get those interior improvements such that we have just the right amount of recreation programming space within our budget. A significant portion of that renovation budget for the community center, I do want to add, is allocated to critical infrastructure, such as new drainage around the perimeter of the building and building systems. And we believe those are really good investments to ensure continuity of operations and to lower future operations and maintenance. And I'm saying this because when you start to see, we will bring you an update soon, when you start to see how much of the building we're not renovating the whole building, but we're really trying to be strategic with our limited resources. So more to come on that. We are still planning to reopen that entire site to the community and have a grand reopening this fall. So stay tuned for that. For the Milwaukee Bay Park project, 2 contracts that were set to expire on December 31st of last year, 2024, have been extended. So we're still minding that project, even though it's on hold. The first contract is for design, and the second contract is for the general contractor, because we actually have a very unique partnership with the general contractor whereby they participate actually in pre-construction as well as construction. The website project redesign continues. It will launch this year, but we're going to launch it probably closer to summer of this year. We have uncovered some unforeseen design challenges and we want to get it right. So we're really working through it carefully, and so don't hold your breath, but we do expect to have it launched by summer of this year. Here at the aquatic park, the hot tub has reopened, and I really want to thank the aquatics and facilities team because they had to do a lot of work during the holiday season to get that back up and running. And winter's the time when you want a hot tub. So thank you, aquatics and facilities team. It's really appreciated. In November, NCPRD Natural Resources staff hosted a volunteer event at Kronberg Park. There were 19 volunteers and they planted 150 plants. On December 7th, NCPRD held its annual winter celebration at Milwaukee Community Center, and over 300 people attended. So far, we have more than 1,400 players registered for Hoopers basketball. Director Savas, I think you mentioned that you had some kids involved in that program a while ago. Staff are currently organizing teams, securing gymnasium rentals from the school district, ordering uniforms, and recruiting over 200 volunteer coaches. That's a lot of volunteers to wrangle. Looking ahead, on the 26th, we're going to host the annual Lunar New Year celebration at Milwaukee Community Center. It's an all ages event, so I hope you'll turn out for that. And then on February 4th,
NCPRD resident registration begins at noon for spring programming. Erin mentioned the design and dinner social event on February 8th at the Milwaukee Community Center. So check your packet for more info if you want to attend. And as staff, we are really working hard, pencils down on budget proposals. The fiscal year 25-26 requested budget will be submitted to county finance in February. So we're really on the fast track there. And then shortly after that, the budget committee will be reconvened to review highlights of that proposal. So you'll get another update from Sheila. Please look in your meeting packets for responses to the questions that you raised in November when I kicked off the budget presentation. There's a memo for you, so take a look, please. Late last year, the board approved policy that allows for a fee increase of up to 3% each year. These fee increases will be effective July of this year. And what I want to say about that is you can look at that policy document and review it. But I think that if you're tracking this topic, most importantly, next month, NCPRD staff will request board approval of fee increases that exceed the 3%. So these requests are really being made for two reasons. I want to say first, and really most importantly, the majority of our fees have not been increased for about 5 years and are really significantly below what we need for adequate cost recovery. And we are also significantly below our industry peers like Tualatin Hills Parks and Rec, Portland Parks, et cetera. I also want to say that the second reason, and to a lesser degree, we're trying to make some accounting changes. So instead of having a new fee that's $2.22, we have a new fee that's $2.25. So trying to round up to a whole number, but that will exceed that maximum or 3% cap that's established in policy. Now, having said all that, I really want to reassure our customers and please share this within your networks that we are very sensitive to price increases. I know everybody's feeling it on all sides in all parts of their lives. So we're really mindful of that as we put together our fee increases. And that concludes my director's report.
Thank you so much. And that will take us to our next item, which is public comment. And I will call for statements from folks in the community. I have a comment card here in the room, excuse me. I'd like to invite Kathy to come forward. Yes. You could just say your name and the general area that you're with, either inside or outside of the district, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Kathy Schreiber, Alma Myra Park. I'm here to advocate for the trees and the soil. We had an agreement to do a side-by-side. It's been like a year since I popped in here, so all new faces. And I hope that being outside the agenda, that there wasn't some major drama out of this. But I like the way this meeting is going. So yes, advocating for soil. I sequestered 4.95 tons of carbon in my yard using soil microbes and hope to share that with Clackamas County and the Parks Department. And then reiterate the agreement for a side-by-side trial to show the difference between using chemicals and using Mother Nature. I'll put together more. I just wanted to pop in and say hello. I'm still here. Thanks, everybody.
Great. Thank you so much.
5 tons, almost. It's possible. Well, thank you.
So Jessica, do we have any folks on Zoom who would like to give comments?
If you would like to provide a public comment, please use the raise hand feature. What do you see?
Hello, Lindsay. If you could introduce yourself and the general area you're in the district, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Lindsay Friedman, and I am in sub area 3 within close walking distance of the Justice property. And that's what I'm here to speak about tonight. In brief, the the many community members, we've been calling ourselves the Friends of the Justice Property Park. We're really concerned that NCPRD was not able to purchase the northern adjacent parcel. Though I do understand that NCPRD did make an offer, and I do understand that there'll be more updates at the next meeting about that, which I appreciate. And the news of this offer was very heartwarming to me because I thought, okay, yes, we're on the same page. We are trying to make this park happen. For those of you who aren't clear, this Justice property was supposed to become a park 30 years ago. NCPRD wanted to wait and try to purchase the other 3 acres. So there's one parcel that's owned, and then there's an adjacent parcel right next to it. And so there's been this like waiting for this property to become available, and then there's been a can we just have a park anyway? And so in December, the property was actually sold to a local developer, which was heartbreaking. And it's unclear to us if the private developer was aware at all of this 30-year-long plan to develop that space into a community park. I remain hopeful that this developer will be able to support the community's vision of preserving one of the very last green spaces in the area as a community accessible nature space. I'm also, in myself and our group, we're looking forward to the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners standing behind both the community and the Parks Department, all working together and potentially incentivizing the developer to ensure that this promise of a justice park is seen through to a fruition. I would love to see all of us work together to make this happen. I think in terms of striking while the iron is hot, the iron is hot right now. This is the time to make this happen. And quick reminder that parks are important not just for families and animals, but for our aging population. We don't have a space where our community in this micro area to meet. We could go to the Safeway parking lot. It's not the same as some benches and a little walking trail. People use this space already, but so many more people would use this space if it was a little bit more sure-footed, less ankle turners, and maybe a light. So that's what I'm here to speak on. I think in terms of the iron being hot, I'm just gonna be a hammer. And I think you'll be hearing from a lot more community members. I know that there have been a lot of discussions, and people are really just feeling we've held out for 30 years not having a development here. And some of the neighbors who this development would be right in their backyards are pretty upset. And again, that's the parcel that was privately owned and purchased privately. So there's kind of a couple things going on. But in conclusion, I remain hopeful that this park will exist while my child, who's currently 8, is still a child and not an adult. So we've got 10 years. Can we do it? We can do it before then. So hopeful that all the stakeholders can work together to make this happen. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I was going to say time, and then you said in conclusion, so thank you. Okay, do we have any more comments? No. Okay, thank you everyone for attending today. Thank you for participating fully. Our future dates, we're asking for future agenda submissions by Wednesday, the 15th of January. And then our next DAC meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, February the 12th. Thank you all, and we are adjourned.
Thank you, Jeanette. Thank you.